The Hey Eddie podcast is brought to you by. Are you tired of being stuck in the back? Do you want the best seat at the table, the front of the line, the spot where everyone knows you're important? Introducing Best Seat Reservers. Just slap the giant golden sticker on any chair and boom, it's yours. Thrones, recliners, the seat next to the birthday kid, all yours. Wait, hold on. I'm getting a note here. Apparently, Jesus said the greatest people are the ones who serve others, not the ones who grab the best seats. So, this product is basically the opposite of what he taught. Best seat reservers. Don't buy them, just go help someone instead. We probably should have checked the Bible before we made these. This is the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. The Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to helping kids like my cool cousin Eddie learn about the Bible and learn important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. The Bible is indeed God's gift to kids, a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. On today's episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, we're going to be studying Mark chapter 10, verses 32 through 45, in a lesson titled The Upside Down Kingdom. This lesson will teach us that true greatness means serving others, and Jesus showed us how by giving his life for us. Our key memory verse is Mark chapter 10, verse 45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Hey Eddie, let me ask you something. If you could have any seat in a movie theater, which one would you pick? The front row where you have to crane your neck? The back row where you can barely see? Or right in the middle, the best seat in the house? Most people want the best seat, right? The spot where everyone knows you're important. Well, in today's story, two of Jesus' disciples tried to call dibs on the best seats in God's kingdom. And what Jesus told them turned everything upside down. Get ready, Eddie. This one might surprise you. Ready? Let's go. Jesus and his disciples were walking along the road, and for the first time, we find out exactly where they were going: Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem was the big city, the capital, the place where the temple was, the center of everything for God's people. But it was also the place where the religious leaders who didn't like Jesus lived. And here's what's interesting. Jesus was walking out in front of everyone. He wasn't strolling casually. He was marching forward with purpose, like he knew exactly what was coming. The disciples noticed, and they were scared. Something felt different. Something felt serious. Then Jesus pulled the 12 disciples aside and told them for the third time what was going to happen to him. We're going to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and teachers of the law. They'll condemn him to death. They'll hand him over to the Romans, who will mock him, spit on him, beat him, and kill him. But 3 days later, he will rise. Whoa! Jesus laid it all out. The mocking, the spitting, the beating, the death, and then the resurrection. You'd think that the disciples would be quiet after hearing something like that, right? Yeah, not so much. Right after Jesus finished talking about his death, two of his closest disciples, James and John, walked up to him with a request. Teacher, they said, we want you to do whatever we ask. Uh-oh, that's never a good way to start a conversation. Jesus asked, what do you want me to do for you? And here's what they said. When you come into your glory, let one of us sit on your right and the other at your left. In other words, when you become king, can we be the most important guys in the kingdom? Can we have the thrones right next to yours? Eddie, can you believe that? Jesus had just told them he was going to suffer and die, and their response was, cool, but what about us? Can we be famous? They were thinking about themselves when Jesus was thinking about giving his life. Jesus didn't yell at them. He didn't roll his eyes. He just said something really serious. You don't know what you're asking. And then he asked them a question. Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink? Can you be baptized with the baptism I'm going to be baptized with? Now, he wasn't talking about a literal cup of juice or getting dunked in water. He was using word pictures. The cup means suffering. In the Bible, when someone talks about drinking a cup, it often means going through something really hard, like pain or trouble or even death. And baptism here meant being overwhelmed, like being pulled under by a giant wave of hardship. Jesus was asking, are you ready to suffer like I'm about to suffer? And James and John said, we can. They said it confidently, like they totally had this. But here's the thing, they didn't really understand what they were signing up for. Later, when Jesus was arrested, these same guys ran away scared. Jesus told them, you will go through suffering, but those seats next to me, that's not mine to give. God has already prepared those for whoever he chooses. When the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked for, they were not happy. They were angry, furious even. But wait, why were they so mad? Was it because James and John had been selfish and ignored what Jesus said about dying? Nope. They were mad because James and John had tried to get ahead of them. They were jealous. They wanted those important seats too. So basically, all the disciples were thinking the same way. They all wanted to be the greatest. And that's when Jesus called everyone together for a really important lesson. Jesus said, you know how rulers in this world act, right? They boss people around. They lord it over everyone. They use their power to make themselves feel important and to keep everyone else down. The disciples nodded. Yeah, they knew how kings and emperors worked. Push people around, grab all the power, be the boss. But then Jesus said something that flipped everything upside down. Not so with you. Wait, what? Instead, Jesus said, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. Eddie, did you catch that? In the world's way of thinking, great people get served. In Jesus' way of thinking, great people serve. In the world's way, first place means everyone does what you say. In Jesus' way, first place means you do things for everyone else. It's completely backwards from what the world says. That's why I call it the upside down kingdom. And then Jesus gave the reason. This is one of the most important verses in the whole book of Mark. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Let's unpack that. The Son of Man is Jesus. And he's not just any guy, he's the King of the universe. If anyone deserved to be served, to have people wait on him hand and foot, it was Jesus. But that's not why he came. He came to serve. He came to help others. He came to wash feet and heal the sick and love the outcast. And here's the biggest part. He came to give his life as a ransom. A ransom is a price you pay to set someone free. Like if someone was kidnapped and you paid money to rescue them, that's a ransom. We were trapped by sin. We couldn't rescue ourselves. So Jesus paid the price with his own life to set us free. That's why he was heading to Jerusalem, not to sit on a throne, but to die on a cross. And that's what real greatness looks like. So what does this mean for you? First, greatness isn't about being famous or powerful. In God's kingdom, the greatest people are the ones who serve others. That means you can be great right now by helping your family, being kind to your friends, and putting others first. Second, Jesus is the ultimate example. He's the king of everything, and he served. He didn't come to boss people around. He came to give his life for us. If Jesus served, we should too. Third, don't be like James and John. It's easy to think about ourselves, what we want, what makes us look good. But Jesus calls us to think about others first. 4, the world's way is upside down. The world says, climb to the top, be the boss, look out for number 1. But Jesus says, go low. Serve. Give. That's where true greatness is found. Fifth, Jesus gave his life for you. You were rescued. You were ransomed. You were loved enough that Jesus died in your place. That's not something you earned. It's a gift. So the next time you want the best seat, the first spot in line, or all the attention for yourself, remember, Jesus had every right to be first, and he chose to be last. And that made him the greatest of all. This has been the Hey Eddie Podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. Remember that the Hey Eddie Podcast is dedicated to studying the Bible and learning important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. Today we discussed Mark chapter 10, verses 32 through 45. Tune in soon for another episode of the Hey Eddie Podcast, where we'll study Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. Love you, Eddie.